imagine walking in your JavaScript interview with complete confidence, ready to tackle every question and leave a lasting impression on your potential employer. Hello everyone, I am Nidhi and I welcome you all to our video on JavaScript interview questions. In this session, we will guide you through 30 essential JavaScript questions that are frequently asked in front-end and full-stack developer interviews. These questions cover everything from JavaScript basics to advanced concepts, ensuring you are well prepared to demonstrate your expertise. Before we get into the details, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on latest tech content from Edureka. Also remember to check out Edureka's website for our training and certification courses. The link is in the description box below. So before we dive into the interview questions, let's have a look at some job profiles and salary expectations you can aim for if you master JavaScript. So JavaScript opens the door for a variety of job roles across the different domains. Here are 6 key profiles you can target with JavaScript skills. So the first one is front-end developer. As a front-end developer, you can create stunning and interactive user interfaces. This role involves building a parts of websites and applications that user interacts with directly. Mastering JavaScript framework like React and Angular can give you a huge edge. The second one is backend developer. Backend developer focuses on server-side applications, ensuring that the logic, databases, and APIs work seamlessly. With Node.js, JavaScript extends its power to backend, allowing you to build scalable and efficient applications. The next one is full-stack developer. Love the idea of working with both front-end and backend, right? Then full-stack development is your calling. Full-stack developers can handle the entire application, making them highly versatile and in demand. The next one is JavaScript software engineer. This role is a border focusing on designing and developing software applications using JavaScript as a core technology. This requires deep knowledge of JavaScript along with problem solving and engineering skills. The next one is mobile app developer. Do you know that JavaScript can also be used for mobile app development? Frameworks like React Native enables the developers to create cross-platform mobile applications with single code base. This makes the mobile app development faster and more efficient. And the next one we have is game developer. If you're into gaming, JavaScript has you covered. Libraries like Parser and 3.js allows you to develop engaging browser-based games, offering a fantastic way to combine creativity and coding. So each of these roles has its unique challenges and rewards. But the common factor is JavaScript, a language that ties them all together. Now you might be wondering, what about the salaries? Well, the earning potential varies depending on the role, your experience, and your location. But JavaScript developers are among the top earners of tech industry. So whether you are building websites, apps, or games, you can expect a lucrative career with JavaScript. Let's have a look at some salary expectations of the 6 roles that we have discussed previously. So starting from the top, we have the role of game developer. Game developer can expect an average salary range between 6 lakhs to 10 lakhs per year. Their role focuses on creating interactive game experience. Moving to the right, we have another important role, that is JavaScript developer. The JavaScript developers earn the average salary range of 3.5 lakhs to 5.5 lakhs annually. These specialize in coding and building the dynamic application. Next, we will look at the backend developer. Backend developers falls within the average salary range of 7 lakhs to 9 lakhs per year. They handle the server-side logic and database management. Now let's focus on the front-end developer salary. Front-end developer earns an average salary range of 5.5 lakhs to 7.5 lakhs per year. They work on designing and implementing user interfaces. Now let's discuss the full-stack developer role. Full-stack developer combines the front-end and the back-end skills, making them highly versatile, so the average salary range is 7 lakhs to 10 lakhs. Finally, let's look at the mobile app developer salary. So mobile app developers earn an average salary range of 6 lakhs to 8.5 lakhs per annum. They build an application for smartphones and tablets. Now let's have a look at job profiles and their corresponding salary expectations in the tech industry in USA. Starting from the top, we have the game developer role. Game developers can earn the average salary of $105,300 per year. And again, moving on the right, we have the role of JavaScript software engineer. JavaScript software engineer typically earns around $105,840 per year. So next on we have backend developers. So backend developers can earn around $150,000 and $980 per year. Next on we have front-end developer. So front-end developers can earn approximately $104,800 per year. Moving on, we have full-stack developers. So full-stack developers can earn impressive average of $150,000 and $900 per year. Finally, we have mobile app developer. Mobile app developers can earn the salary of around $187,000 per year. So as you can see, the tech industry in USA offers a lucrative opportunities across the different roles, with salaries reflecting the specialized skills required in each area. So now that we have covered these salaries, let's shift our gears and dive into some JavaScript interview questions to prepare you for the interview. So let's dive into our first question. So the first question that we have is, what is temporal dead zone? And the answer to this question is, the temporal dead zone is a behavior associated with variables declared using let and const. It refers to the time between when a variable is declared and when it is initialized, during which assigning the variable results in an error. Especially, it prevents you from using the variable before it's fully set up in the memory. Now let's move on to our VS Code to understand it via a code. So here we have the small code that reflects the temporal dead zone. So here we can see let myVar declares the variable myVar during the entire execution until let myVar is equal to 10 is assigned a value. Any attempt to access myVar will throw in reference error. So here we can see we have this reference error. This is because let myVar has not been assigned yet. So now console.log myVar attempts an access to myVar before its initialization. Here we can see that. So at this point, myVar is in its temporal dead zone. So reference error is thrown. As we can see here, the reference error is thrown. So let myVar is equal to 10. Here we can see let myVar is equal to 10 initializes the variable with the value 10. So after this line, let myVar is accessible. So this is the basic example of temporal dead zone. So now let's move on to our next question. And the next question that we have is, what is strict mode in JavaScript and how it can be enabled? And the answer to this question is, strict mode in JavaScript is a way to ensure a stricter parsing and error handling in your code. It helps you to write cleaner code by preventing the use of potentially problematic language features and throwing error for common mistakes that JavaScript might otherwise overlook. So strict mode is enabled by adding the following string at the beginning of the script or a function. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what are closures in JavaScript? And the answer to this question is, closures are the powerful feature in JavaScript that enables function to remember and access the variables from their outer scope. Even after the outer function has finished executing, essentially closures are formed when the inner function makes the use of variable declared in the parent function. This allows for more concise and efficient code as it enables the function to retain the access of important data. So here let's understand the closures with the help of an example. Closure is created when the inner function incree captures the variable count from its enclosing counter function. Even after counter has finished executing, the incree function retains the access to count, allowing it to increment and log the value each time it is called. So that's it about closures in JavaScript. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, explain hosting in JavaScript. And the answer to this question is, hosting is a unique mechanism in JavaScript where variables and functions declarations are moved on the top of their scope during the compile phase even before the code starts executing. This means you can use functions or variables before they are declared in the code. Let's have a look at the example on this slide. In the left code snippet, the function getEmp is called before its declaration. However, it works without any errors because the function declaration is hosted on the top of the scope. Similarly, inside getEmp, the variable emp1 is declared using var. Even though the declaration is hosted, the assignment happens at runtime. This ensures that the value 20 is correctly logged. The second snippet highlights the same concept with alert. This shows that the hosting applies to the both function declarations and variable declarations, allowing the code to behave as if these were at the top of their respective scopes. So that's it about the hosting in JavaScript. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the difference between equality operator and the strict equality operator? And the answer to this question is, these equality operators are also called loose equality operators. They perform type cohesion. This means it converts the values being compared to the same type before checking its equality. On the other hand, these are also called strict equality operators that does not perform any type of cohesion. It requires both the value and the type to be identical for the comparison to return true. So in summary, we use strict equality operator to precise the comparisons and equality operator when you can handle the type conversion implicitly. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the difference between declaring variables using var, let and const? And the answer to this question is, the main difference between let, var and const lie in their scope, hosting behavior and reassignment. While var is a function scoped and allows redeclaration and reassignment, let and const are block scoped, with const preventing the reassignment and both being affected by the temporal dead zone. Rest you can pause the video and go through the differences one by one. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is rest parameter and spread operator? The spread operator is used to unpack the element from the array or object, spreading them into two individual elements. In contrast, the rest parameter allows the function to accept an indefinite number of arguments as an array, enabling the collection of all the remaining arguments into single variable. Now let's move on to our VS Code and understand it via a small example. So here we are looking at the small code example of rest parameter. The display name function uses rest parameter names to collect the infinite number of arguments into an array. When called with Alice, Bob and Charlie, these arguments are grouped into an array, Alice, Bob and Charlie, that we can look at the output. So the console.log name statement then logs their array into a console. This is useful for handling the dynamic inputs. Here you can look at the output. So similarly, we have a small code example of a spread operator. The spread operator is used to unpack the elements from an array and spread them into a new array. For example, when combining the arrays like const all fruits, fruit1, fruit2, it unpacks the elements of fruit1 and fruit2 and combines them into new array. So the rest parameter is similar in syntax, but it is used to function definition to collect the multiple arguments into single array, while the spread operator expands the element into new context and the rest parameter collects the values passed to a function. So that's it about the rest parameter and spread operator. So now let's move on to our next question. Explain the difference between arrayPrototype.filter and arrayPrototype.reduce. So filter is used to create a new array with all elements that pass a specified condition or test. It returns a subset of original arrays with the same number of elements or fewer. Next one we have reduce. It is used to apply a function on each element of array to accumulate a single result, such as sum, product or even transformed value. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is self-executing function? And the answer to this question is, self-executing function are also known as immediately invoked function expression. It is a JavaScript function that is executed as soon as it is defined. The purpose of self-executing function is to ensure the immediate execution of the code that it contains, enable the encapsulation creating a private scope to avoid populating a global namespace, and they often use anonymous functions which do not require a name and are directly executed. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, how would you implement a custom method to check if the array contains duplicate? And the answer to this question is, to implement a custom method to check if the array contains duplicate, you can follow these steps. First of all, start. This initializes the process by initializing the required data structure. Then we go to initialize a set. Here we create an empty set. This will be used to track unique elements. Next we have iterate over the array. This means loop through each element in the array. Next on we have check if the element exists in the set. So if the current element is already in the set, it means the duplicate is found. return true immediately as the array contains the duplicate. Otherwise, add the current element to the set and continue looping through the array. So if no duplicate found, that means if the loop completes without finding the duplicate, return false to indicate the array has no duplicates. And that's it. After that, you can finish the execution of that method. So this approach is efficient because the set ensures the constant time lookups. The method stopped as soon as the duplicate is found, optimizing the performance. So this is how you can check the duplicates in JavaScript code. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, how can you remove duplicates from the JavaScript array? So for this question, let's move on to our VS Code and understand it via code example. So now here we are on our VS Code, and here we are going to see how to remove the duplicates from JavaScript code using set method. So this code basically demonstrates how to remove duplicate elements from an array using set object. A set is built-in JavaScript object that only stores unique values. By passing the number array into the new set, duplicates are automatically removed. The spread operator is then used to convert the set back into an array, resulting in a new array with only unique elements. The output of console.log unique number will be array without duplicates that we can see here. All the duplicates from the array has been removed just by using set numbers. That's it. We also have one more method, that is filter. Let's have a look at that. First of all, we are going to save this code and then we are going to run this code. So that's it. Now let's understand this. So this code removes the duplicate from an array using filter method. The filter method creates a new array with the element that pass a test. In this code, the test check if the first occurrence of each value in an array matches the current index using array.indexValue. So if the current index is same as the first index where the value appears, it means that the value is unique and is included in the new array. The result of new array unique numbers that contain only unique values are from the original number array. So here is the output using the filter method. So now we have understood how to remove the duplicates using the set and filter. So now let's move on to our next question. How will you empty an array in JavaScript? And the answer to this question is, here are 4 different ways to empty an array in JavaScript. First of all, you can simply assign an array to empty array, which effectively clears the content. Second on, we can set an array's length to 0, which is a quick and efficient method to empty it. Third, we can use loop to pop up the each element one by one until the array is empty. And finally, you can use splice method, which allows you to remove all the elements in one go by specifying the starting index and the number of the elements to remove. Each method has its own use case depending on your requirements, but all are effective in emptying an array. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, describe the concept of memoization and its implementation in JavaScript. First, let's understand what is memoization and then we will have a look at the code. So the answer to this question is, memoization is a technique used to improve the performance by storing the result of time-consuming function calls. When the same inputs are provided again, instead of recalculating, the function retrieves the pre-computed result from a cache. This approach significantly reduces the redundant calculation and speed up the execution, especially in the scenarios involving repetitive tasks and recursive function. Now let's move on to our VS Code to understand it via small code example. So here we are on our VS Code and let's understand memoization with the help of small example. So this code implements memoization technique to optimize the Fibonacci function. Memoization is a way to store the result of expensive function calls and reuse them when the same inputs occur. So let's go through the code one by one. So first of all, we have this memoize function. It takes a function as an argument and returns a new function. And inside this new function, we can check if the result for the given argument, args, is already cached. If it is, we return the cached value by skipping the function calls. So if it is not cached, we can calculate the result and store it in cache and return it. So after that, we have this Fibonacci function. This is the basic recursive Fibonacci function. It calculates the Fibonacci number for a given n. The function calls itself twice for each value of n greater than 1. After that, memoized function is the result of passing the Fibonacci function into memoized function. This memoized version optimizes the performance of caching and results. So the first we call Fibonacci function 10 that computes the Fibonacci number and stores the intermediate result in cache. And second, to call the Fibonacci function 10 that fetches the result from cache, avoiding the redundant calculation. And here are the output of our Fibonacci function. First of all, we have called this. In the first go, it calculated the Fibonacci number. After that, it is stored in the cache and then it is fetched from the cache when we have called it again. So now let's move on to our next question. And the next question that we have is, explain higher order functions in JavaScript. And the answer to this question is, higher order functions are the key concept in JavaScript that elevates the power of functional programming. These are functions that can take another function as an argument or return a function as their output. So this diagram illustrates two primary use cases. First, higher order function taking a function as input. A higher order function can expect a regular function as an argument. For example, function like map, filter and reduce in JavaScript allows you to pass callback function to process elements of an array. And after that, higher order function returning another function. It can also return a new function as its result. This is useful for creating custom utilities or scenarios like currying. So now that's it for the higher order function. Let's move on to our next question. And the next question that we have is JavaScript a statically typed or a dynamically typed language? And the answer to this question is, JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. In dynamically typed language, the type of the variable is checked during the runtime, in contrast to statically typed language, where the type of the variable is checked during the compile time. So here you can see the example that the variable cannot be changed in the static language, but you can change the type of variable in the dynamic typing. So that's it. And now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is BOM? And the answer to this question is, the BOM or browser object model in JavaScript refers to object provided by the browser to interact with the browser window and its component. It serves as a bridge between JavaScript and its browser environment, enabling the developers to control and manipulate the browser-related functionalities. The BOM allows the developer to control the browser environment, such as manipulating the browser window, handling the browser events, and accessing the browser-specific properties and methods. This includes features like resizing the window, navigating the new URL, working with the cookies, or even interacting with the browser's history and locating objects, enabling dynamic and responsive web experiences. So that's all about the browser object model. And now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what are arrow functions in JavaScript? And the answer to this question is, the arrow functions in JavaScript are simpler and more concise way to write functions. Unlike the traditional function, arrow functions don't require the function keyword. They are especially useful for writing the shorter codes and maintaining the readability. Plus, they can handle this keyword differently, making them ideal for certain use cases like callbacks. As in this example, you can see that the arrow function eliminates the need of function keyword and uses fat arrow to separate the parameters and the function body. In this case, the arrow function has an implicit return, meaning it directly returns the result without needing the return keyword. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, explain event delegation and why it is useful. And the answer to this question is, event delegation is a technique where a single event listener is used to handle events for multiple child elements by leveraging the event bubbling. This approach enhances the performance and makes the managing dynamic DOM elements more efficient and straightforward. This code demonstrates the concept of event delegation, and here's how it works. First, attach the event listener to the parent element. Instead of adding the individual event listener to the child element, a single-click event listener is attached to the parent element. Next, check the target of the event inside the event listener. That is, event.target property is used to determine which child element triggered the event. The matches.child method checks if the clicked event has the class child. Next, handle the event. If the clicked event matches the condition, the message child clicked is logged to the console. So that's all about the event delegation. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is currying in JavaScript? And the answer to this question is, currying in JavaScript is a technique where a function is transformed so it takes arguments one at the time instead of all at once. Each argument leads to a return of new function which expects the next argument until all the arguments are provided. Once all the arguments are supplied, the function finally executes and returns the result. For example, the outer function expects the first argument A and returns the another argument. The second function expects the second argument B and returns yet another function. And the innermost function expects the final argument C and computes the result by adding A, B and C together. The earlier arguments A and B are remembered through closures. This makes currying helpful for creating reusable and specialized functions. For instance, you can predefine the value of argument and reuse the partially applied function in the various scenarios. So that's all about currying in JavaScript. Now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what are the 4 stages of promise object in JavaScript? The 4 stages of promise object are, first we have pending. It is the initial stage of promise. This state represents that the promise has neither been fulfilled nor been rejected. It's pending. The second one is fulfilled. This stage represents that the promise has been fulfilled, meaning that the asynchronous operation is completed. The next one is rejected. This state represents that the promise has been rejected for some reason, meaning that the asynchronous operation has failed. And the last one is settled. This state represents that the promise has been either rejected or fulfilled. Now that's all about the 4 stages of promise object in JavaScript. Now let's move on to our next question. And the next question that we have is, what is the purpose of raise method in promise? And the answer to this question is, the promise raise method in JavaScript is designed to handle multiple promises concurrently and resolve or reject as soon as one of the promise is iterable settles. In simpler terms, it works like a race between all the promise you provide. The promise that settles first determines the result of promise.raise. So now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the difference between array slice and array splice in JavaScript? For this, we have to move on to our VS Code and we'll understand this via code example. So now here we are on VS Code and let's understand the slice with an example. So this code demonstrates how to extract a portion of an array using slice method. The slice14 call creates a new array sliced number that includes the elements from index 1 to index 3. The start index is inclusive and the end index is exclusive. It does not modify the original array as slice returns a shallow copy. In example, the original array remains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the sliced array contains 2, 3 and 4. Here you can see the example. The original array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the sliced array is 2, 3 and 4. So basically this slice has created a new array that is a shallow copy of the original array. Now let's understand the splice array. We'll just run this code. So this code basically demonstrates how to remove element from the array using splice method. The splice13 calls modify the original array number by removing the 3 elements starting from the index. First, it returns the removed elements in the new array, spliced number. After that operation, the original array is updated to 1 and 5. The removed elements are stored in spliced number as 2, 3, 4. Unlike slice, splice changes the original array. So here we can see that the original array has been changed here. From the original array, the number that we want to remove has been removed and stored into the another array. So basically, splice directly changes the original array, but slice does not changes the original array. Slice makes a shallow copy of the original array and adds the updated value in the shallow copy. So that's it about the splice and slice in JavaScript. So now let's move on to our next question. What is object destructing? And the answer to this question is, object destructing in JavaScript is a syntax that allows you to extract properties from an object and assign them directly to variables. This makes the code cleaner, more readable and more efficient when working with the objects. In this figure, we have the object named user which contains the three key values name, city, type. So the object holds the information about the user, and this highlighted orange box shows the destructing syntax. That means const name, city, type is equal to user. So here is what happens. The properties name, city and type of the user objects are unpacked. So these properties are directly assigned to the variables name, city and type. So the extracted values are shown in the diagram as Nidhi, Delhi and admin. So these values are also accessible as an individual variable, allowing you to use them directly in your code. So that's it about the object destructing. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the this keyword in JavaScript? And the answer to this question is, the this keyword in JavaScript is a special identifier representing the object currently executing the function. It is a dynamic, meaning its value depends upon the context in which the function is called. So this makes this a powerful but sometimes tricky concept to understand. So here's how this behaves in a different context. First, we have the global context. When used in a global scope, it refers to a global object. In the browser environment, this global object is a window object. Second one we have is an inside function. When this is used inside regular function, it still points to a global object, which is again a window object unless the function is revoked in the strict mode. And then inside a method. When this is used inside a method of an object, it refers to an honor object, the object that contains the method. So that's it about the this keyword in JavaScript. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the difference between view state and session state? So the basic difference between the both is, view state is a client-side state management technique in ASP.NET that stores the data specific to a page in a hidden field, ensuring that the data persists across the post backs but is limited to the same page. Session state, on the other hand, is a server-side management mechanism that stores the user-specific data, such as login information, across multiple pages within the session, ensuring data persists as long as the session is active. Rest you can pause the video and go through the differences thoroughly. That's it about the view state and session state. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, what is the output of this snippet? Now let's move on to the VS Code and see what is the output. So here we are on our VS Code and we have written this code. Now let's quickly understand this code. In JavaScript, the plus operator behaves differently depending on the type of the operands. So this plus operator will behave differently when we are using it with string or when we are using it with number. So both 10 and 20 are numbers. The addition operation is performed and it is resulting in 30. So here you can see the output. It is resulting in 30. After that, we have 30 plus 30. That means we have this 30 not as number but as string. So when the plus operator is used between the number and string, the JavaScript performs type cohesion. This means 30 is converted into string and the two string 30 and 30 are concatenated, resulting in 30 and 30. So this is the output, which is 3030, because this 30 is converted into string and after that this 30 and this 30 is concatenated. So that's it about this. So now that we have gone through the output of this code, now let's move on to our next question. So the next question that we have is, what is event bubbling? Event bubbling is a process where an event triggered on the target element propagates upward through its ancestor in the DOM hierarchy, starting from the target element and moving upward to the document object. So let's understand event bubbling with the help of an workflow diagram. So first, we have the target element, that is button. The process begins at the target element where the event is triggered, such as button being clicked. The event handler attached to this element executes first. After that, we have span element. From the target element, the event bubbles up to its immediate parent element, such as span. If the span has the event handler for the same event, it will execute the next. After that, we have the div element. The event then propagates to the parent div element. If the event handler is attached to the div, it will execute at this stage. After that, we have body element. Moving further up, the event reaches the body element, which contains all the visible and interactive content of the web page. Global event listeners are often attached here. After that, we have the head element, if applicable. So, although interactive elements are not technically associated with the head element, an event can technically propagate through it as the part of the bubbling process. After that, we have root element. Next, that the event reaches to the root HTML element, which is the starting point of all visible content in the page. After that, we have document object. Finally, the event bubbles up to the document object. This represents the entire web page. At this point, any event handler attached to the document object can execute. So this hierarchical propagation ensures that the event handlers at different levels of the DOM tree can respond to the same event as it bubbles up. So now that's it about the event handling. Now let's move on to the next question. So the next question that we have is, explain the difference between mutable and immutable objects in JavaScript. And the answer to this question is, so mutable objects can be changed or updated after they are created. For example, objects and arrays in JavaScript are mutable, meaning we can modify their content such as adding, removing or updating the values. After that, we have immutable objects. Immutable objects, on the other hand, cannot be changed once they are created. Instead of modifying the existing object, any changes result in creation of new object. Strings and numbers in JavaScript are examples of immutable types. So that's it for mutable and immutable objects in JavaScript. Now let's move on to the next question. And the next question that we have is, what are symbols used for in JavaScript? The symbols are unique and immutable data type that was introduced in ES6. They serve a crucial role in creating unique identifiers, which helps to avoid the name conflict in objects. Think of them as a way to ensure your key stays distinct even in the complex programs. Let's have a look at some of the key features. First of all is unique and immutable. Each symbol is entirely unique. Even if you create two symbols with the same description, they won't be equal. So this ensures immutability and prevents unintended overrides. The second one is used as object keys. Symbols can be used as property keys in object, offering a secure way to add unique properties without worrying about the conflicts. Next on, we have the hidden from iteration. Unlike strings or numbers, properties keyed by symbols are enumerable. This means they don't have to show up during the iterations like for, in, or object.keys. After that, we have global symbols registry. JavaScript provides a shared global registry through symbol.for and symbol.key4. This allows symbols to be reused or accessed globally by their description. So that's it. Now let's move on to our next question. What are template literals and how they are used? And the answer to this question is, the template literals are the powerful way to work with the strings more flexibly in JavaScript. They make it incredibly easy to embed variables and expression directly within a string, saving us from hassle of concatenating strings manually. Now let's have a look at this code to understand it. So here we declare two variables, name with the values of Alice and the age with the value of 25. The message variable is created using template literal. Notice how you can use the backticks instead of regular codes. The name and the age syntax allows you to embed and values of name and age directly to the string. Finally, we can print the constructed string to the console and the output will be, hey, my name is Alice and I am 25 years old. So that's it for this video. We have covered 30 interview questions of JavaScript in this video. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it and you can comment down any of your doubts and queries and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka's channel to learn more. Happy learning!